Recording is on.
Hi, it's Pank from PankHnO Paris, France. I hope you're well, and today we will interview Jerry Seavey, and I have Pascoe with me for this podcast. And like each time, we will talk about the Silva method. First, that's all. I think Jerry will introduce himself, and after you will see Lee have a lot of question, and like you know her, she have a lot of energy, so it will be very interesting to have this meeting with Jerry. So first, Jerry, can you introduce you and how you discover the Silva method and why you stay in this method first?
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I was first introduced to the Silva method. Back then, it was called Silva mind control. And of course, people back then were worried about the Soviet bloc controlling our minds through magic waves and all kinds of things. So mind control had a very negative connotation. And Jose wanted to change that to no, it's controlling your own mind. And it has nothing to do with anybody else's mind. It's self-control, self-mind control. Eventually, rather than trying to educate the entire world that mind control was not somebody else doing it to you, he finally called it the Silva method. And it's had a few other iterations since then, but Silva mind control or mind control. And when I first took it, that's what drew my attention. I very rarely read the newspaper, but this one day, through a series of synchronicity, coincidences, whatever higher power you want to call it, I was drawn to pick up a newspaper, and I see this thing, mind control, and it's very hard not to be attracted to a word like that, mind control. It's the alpha brain waves. I said, what are alpha brain waves? This was brand new back then. Nobody knew much about brain waves. And I had I guess I can tell you a little bit about my history. At the time, I had been a heroin addict, the drug addict for many, many, many years. And I had gone to hospitals, clinics, methadone programs, psychiatrists. I did all sorts of things because I was desperate, because I know I'd either die or end up in jail. That's basically the alternative you have. So as a result of that, when I saw this, one of the things it said, go to sleep more easily, awaken without an alarm clock. And then finally it said, control habits, habit control, sleep control, awake control, improve intuition, ESP. And I wasn't so interested in this ESP stuff and intuition. I just get rid of habits. So I went to a free introductory presentation to introduce what this all was about. And at the end, I went up to at the time, the regional director for the New England in the United States area I lived in. And I said, does it really help you get habit control? You can control habits. He said, oh, people stop smoking. They lose weight if the habit is overeating or eating nutritious foods. So that he said, yeah. He said, this will work on any habit. And I didn't go into too much detail about my particular condition, but I had, at least for the first time, after being disappointed through all the other methods of trying to get off heroin, I said, well, maybe this will work. But I had, at the time, because of drug addiction, I had no money, no job, no home. Back then, we weren't called homeless. We were called bums. So here I was living in the cellar of my brother's house on a cot, and I had no money. And I said, so what am I going to do? And I finally convinced my brother. I had one item. I owned a motorcycle. I said, I will sell my motorcycle if you will loan me the money to take this mind power course, which he's a physicist. So he thought, you're crazy enough already, Jerry, so you can't get much more crazy. Go ahead and take this mind control stuff. So this was 1971. So that people realized that I had gone through the 60s, and that's how all that stuff happened. And in the 60s was spilled over into the 70s. And so I took this course called Silva Mind Control. And I said, this is amazing. I couldn't believe some of the stuff I was hearing. It was beyond. I do a lot of science and I study science. And I said, this makes sense, but at the same time, it's a little woo-woo, woo, spooky. And I said, I'll do anything. So I went through the course, and they had the 30-day technique for habits. So I said, well, I have nothing to lose. So I did the 30-day technique. Now, I've since learned that it's just self-hypnosis. That's under another name. But people in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they were afraid of hypnosis. They were stage hypnotists, so it was entertainment. But otherwise, people will control you. They'll make you do things. They'll get into your secrets. And so people were afraid of the word hypnosis. And Jose realized that. He was a hypnotist. And he realized how people really they didn't trust it. So he said, well, I'm not going to hypnotize people. I'm going to help you relax. I'm going to help you visualize. I'll help you use positive suggestions, and the instructor will help give you positive suggestions and help you learn them. And then you do it for yourself at home. So it was hypnosis, self-hypnosis, meditation, visualization, positive thinking, intuition development, all kind of in one little package. This has never been done before and put together in such a unique way, where the average person, doesn't matter if you're in business, if you're in law enforcement, a lawyer, doctor, a street cleaner, it doesn't matter. This applied to you because you were a human being. That's all you had to do. You have to have a brain. And you can't be totally crazy. But other than that, you're welcome to come in, and this will help you. So I took the course, the 30-day technique. On the 30th day, I diminished the amount I was using over 30 days to minimize withdrawal. Completely off. Never, ever, ever. And it wasn't, I didn't want to stop using it. I wanted to get rid of the desire. A lot of people stop drinking, or they stop drugs, or they stop smoking, but they always want to do it. And they sometimes have relapses and slip back. So I don't want to fight it. I want to get rid of it. And by the 30-day technique, I was able to get my subconscious to think of who I was. I'm not Jerry, the drug addict, the junkie. I'm Jerry, a healthy person who has a very great, bright future in front of me, and I have control of my mind and my life to the extent that I have. And it changed the way I thought about life and about myself. That was the big change. But then I had techniques. I when I'm cooking, I want a recipe. I'll make my own recipe up later, but give me something to start out with, to give me the formula to figure out how to do this. So I did that, and I said, this is phenomenal. Maybe I can use it to stop smoking. So I did a 30-day technique. I didn't do both at once. I did then 30 technique. That worked. I said, maybe I can do this. I'd been divorced, and I said, I don't want to be in a relationship, but if I did, I want it to be the love of my life. Well, now I'm almost 50 years with my wife, Mary Lou. So that one worked too, with programming, visualization, the ideal match. And I said, well, gee, I'd like a job that I could, because after I luckily got off heroin, I lost the company went out of business. I didn't lose my job. The company simply went out of business, and I couldn't find another one at that quality and pay that I was earning. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you teach this course you took, this mind thing? I said, I got hair down to my shoulders. I'm a scrawny 20-something-year-old, thin, as you can imagine, the typical look of a hippie junkie. And I said, well, and they said, well, you might need to, trim your hair a little bit. You can still have long hair and dress up a little bit. And so I went to this thing where they said, learn to be an instructor. And they had a whole about 20 of us that were going to be learning do we qualify to learn to be an instructor. And as we left the meeting, now remember, I had no money, no job, no nothing at that time. I'm on the elevator with the director, and he's talking to some guy that I didn't know. And and he said, are you, do you have the money to go? And I said, sure. In my mind, I visualized, I could see the money in my mind. I could see myself in the training, and it was this or better than this. Maybe it would be another year or 2 or 3, but I was going to do this. This stranger on the elevator said, do you need money to go? I said, well, I could use some. I swear. He took out a big roll of $100 bills, US dollars. He said, airfare, hotel, training fees, food. You're going to need a haircut and some clothes. And he gives me a stack of $100 bills. He said, this is not a gift. It's a loan. He said, but if you become an instructor, you're going to help thousands and tens of thousands of people. So I'll be an instructor. The more then you pay me back, somebody else can use this money, and we'll use it over and over. That's how, these are the coincidences that happen when you open up to the universe, to higher power, to the power of the mind. And that was the start of it. And from there, I went on, and within a few years, I was very disappointed. I got what they call the President's Cup as the most, at that time in the United States, the most successful instructor. And I thought, if I'm the most successful instructor, what does that say about Silva? Because I didn't have the best image of myself. And then I realized, wow, they're all pretty good instructors. Now, they don't just take anybody, and it's not the instructor. That's an important thing. Is it the singer or is it the song? Well, if you get a really good song, even somebody like myself who doesn't have the best voice in the world, if I get a really good song, people love it. They want it. Give me more. So I did the best singing I could, trained my voice the way instructors train themselves to present the material in a way that's more interesting and effective. But it was the song that Jose put together. And it was notes. He didn't invent notes. He didn't invent music. It really was from hypnosis and meditation and positive thinking. He put it all together, and he composed a song, a concert. And then almost anybody, not anybody, but a lot of people had the ability to sing that song. And people really got such a change from that. So that's basically my personal history. And I have also gone on from there to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And they got a lot of that by studying Milton Erickson. It's like one of the father of more modern psychiatry and more modern hypnosis. He did a lot conversational, but he did deep trance work. He was able to combine that. And so a lot of NLP is based on the study of people who used hypnosis, but they also on psychiatry and psychology. And that NLP put that together as a way of influencing and putting Silva and NLP together and hypnosis together. That's the particular style that I learned to present. And that's 50 years now, 50 years last June when I took the course, 50 years last December when I became a certified instructor. So it's just 50 years in 2021. And I taught my first class in February of 1972 was my first class that I taught. And here it is 50 years later, and it is just wonderful to see what's happened with Silva, with the instructors. I've gotten to know Lee for many, many, many years. She went through I was one of the instructor trainers, and she was in that class, and I got to know her and her husband, Michael, and we've been to Paris many times, and presented advanced trainings. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's great. Do you observe that we talk about that with Lee, but for me, Jose Silva was very good in conversational hypnosis, in indirect hypnosis. When you read the course, you say, but it's always like Milton Erickson did. And I think it's very interesting because he did it before we know that Milton Erickson did it. So it's quite interesting to understand that he learned some direct hypnosis, and after that, with his method, he creates a method where people can learn meditation, hypnosis, self-hypnosis. We don't care about the word, but with a way of indirect hypnosis. When you do the exercise, it's always very interesting to listen and learn the semantics, and the semantics are with metaphor, cause and effects, a lot of pattern that we learn in NLP or in Erickson. Did you feel that when you studied the NLP after that, or the Milton Erickson hypnosis?
Yeah, before I took NLP and got to know a little bit more about hypnosis, I was one of the defenders that, nope, as Jose would say, Silva is not hypnosis. We're not hypnotizing you. We're not. No. He wanted to make sure that people didn't think, spooky hypnosis at that time. Yeah. And he wanted to move away from that. This is self-control, and we didn't use self-hypnosis, but that's absolutely what it was. And because it depends on your definition of hypnosis. You ask 1,000 people what hypnosis is, even hypnotists, and they have very different definitions of what is and isn't hypnosis. Mm. Jose did become familiar with Erickson because he used some of the stories he used to tell in the graduate course. I, in NLP, realized that's a story I heard that Milton Erickson was doing with using this kind of ways of helping people just conversationally to make changes, not at the conscious level. That's the whole big difference. In the Silva, The changes are not done through your intellect, through what makes sense intellectually. It's all done by the subconscious through visualization, imagery, as you say, metaphors, and just suggestion, repeated positive thinking and suggestion. You'll continue to listen to my voice. You'll continue to follow the instructions at this level or any other level. You may accept or reject anything I say at any level. Those are things to make you feel comfortable, feel safe, but they are hypnotic suggestions. Negative thoughts will have no influence over me at any level of the mind. Those are wonderful, wonderful, positive affirmations. Every day and every way, I'm getting better and better from Emile Coué. So we borrowed, and put together this unique package, this unique symphony, this unique recipe.
That's great. Lee, you have some question. I'm sure I feel your energy.
Okay. Oh, actually, just the fact that you got off heroin in 30 days is pretty bloody amazing. And I often tell my classes that I know somebody who did this and so forth. But what surprised me was at one stage you said when you did the first Silva classes, you didn't think you could do proper visual imagery, and you still managed to do it without having visual imagery. So could you talk a bit about that, and also how you discovered later that you are in fact very visual?
Yeah. Well, I noticed that when they'd say now, visualize this or that, when I close my eyes, I see black. It's totally black. And part of it was I'm trying to see mental pictures with my physical eyes by looking, trying hard to see the picture. So I couldn't see my counselors because, of course, my eyes were closed. And when you close your eyes, it gets dark. That's what happens. And so I finally had to realize, don't try to see it, think it, know it, be aware of it in any way that you want. Just, okay, I can imagine it. With my eyes open, I daydream in very vivid detail. So there's no doubt that I can visualize. Anybody who's ever had a sexual fantasy realizes, oh, I visualize in minute details. Come on, if you can remember where your car is and what it looks like, then obviously you visualize. Not everybody is conscious of their visualization. It has nothing to do with you can't visualize. Of course you can, but not everybody is as aware. I'm aware of now since Silva, 50 years now. I remember my dreams almost every single night, and more than one dream. I've just learned to do it through dream control. It's just I'm asleep. I'm not half awake, I'm asleep, but I'm aware of the dream state, and I have a good recall of the dreams. And that's just a lot of fun. Free movies. But visualization, I finally stopped trying to visualize and just accepted the way that my brain represented it, whether it's through feelings, through sounds, through knowing, just awareness. But then I realized I can describe in detail my counselors, and I can't tell you I see them, but I can describe and find. So obviously that's called visualization, the awareness of a mental image that you're either remembering or you're constructing. So that's visualizing.
Okay. Now, I might have forgotten this over the years because it's a long time since I met you, and I remember you telling me, but didn't you say that one of the first times you really understood visualization was when you did a regression in hypnosis? Or have I got that wrong?
No, that was right. There were a couple of times when I was doing the health cases where you try to detect and then project healing to whatever. And a couple of times when I think, I don't know this, I think it had to do either with the person that I was working with, I was kind of picking up their imagery, or it was the person who had the health problem, they had some kind of maybe a very visual representation of their condition that I picked up that. But during a case, I could see the guy sitting in a wheelchair, and it was only one of the legs that was damaged, and the other was. It was just vivid. I could tell you the color shirt he was wearing. So then I said, well, that's visualization. I wish they were all like that, but they weren't. But I still got the cases fairly accurate most of the time. A hypnotist was doing a demonstration hypnosis and asked for a volunteer subject. And I was whatever class I go to, NLP, so I volunteer for anything to be, because I get a free session, free hypnosis session or free, whatever it may be, NLP session, coaching session. So he said, we're going to age regress you. Yeah, sure. And he brought me back. And he said, now, okay, you're going to stop. Now tell me, what's around you? What do you feel? What do you smell? And I was there, fully associated, as we would say. I'm there. I could feel the leatherish kind of pants. They weren't cloth. They were kind of like a skin or a leather. I thought, the old days smelled. This stank. It was absolutely a horrible smell. And I could see a carrack, a ship tied up to the dock, bobbing up and down. And I wasn't trying to, that's the thing. I wasn't trying to visualize. I was simply there. And I was like, I'm here in this room. I'm not trying to visualize this room. And when I'm not paying attention to it, this room disappears. I'm paying attention to you. However, if I start to think about, well, what's behind me? What's beside me? I can remember that. Or I can even imagine, what if there was a dog in the room? I can imagine. So that's when I started. That gave me a feeling of maybe I've got the definition of visualization that's holding me back. It's not, I don't visualize. It's what I thought visualization was supposed to be like, the same as when you see with your eyes. And in that case, it seemed to be that way. But now that I think of it, I don't know if it really was. It's just. Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Really explains it very, very clearly. Yeah.
So do you think you are 30 days habits specialists? You use it for heroin, for smoking, for your relationship, for your work.
Well, the relationship wasn't a 30-day technique. It's been a 50-year technique. So
yeah, that's very important to say to people. I think people need to listen that, because that's very important. It's not 30 days; it's every day. It's very interesting, and so your first motivation was to stop Iran. And
yeah.
Did you remember the process? How did you feel with your first day, and little by little you said to yourself, oh, that's great, I didn't want so much, or I feel better? How was the transition between the beginning and to the end?
All right, so I started out with a lot of skepticism, a hope, but not really sure. I had desire, I had some belief, but I didn't have high expectation yet. But day by day, I would get up in the morning and usually the middle of the day, and at night before I went to sleep, I would buy, and I had a day on a calendar, on X number a day, all desire, not stop, all desire to use heroin would vanish. See, not suppress, not be in my bed. Vanish, it has to me means non-existent. So all desire will have vanished completely, and I will never use heroin ever again. Now, at first, it was just words to myself, and those words meant something to me. That's my inner language that felt real to me. But I realized as I was doing it over days, I started then having like kind of a vague image of a future me, free. I had money sticking out of my pocket. Drug addicts don't have money sticking out of their pocket. All right, they use it as fast as they can get it. And I saw myself happy. These are just little glimpses, vague at first. But as I did it, my expectations started to build. I said, would be nice if that really happened. This really could happen. And as I got closer and closer to 30, it was, I could almost feel the future me already having that. And it was like a magnet pulling me more and more into that mold, that template, that I would want to be that and become that. So I was actually changing, as we know in NLP logical levels, my identity. It wasn't just my behaviors. It wasn't just my capabilities. But I did realize through using Silva, I could also, one reason I used drugs was to help me get to sleep at night. Well, now I have sleep control. I could use awake control to wake up without alarm clocks. I hated waking up in the morning. And with Silva, I can wake up feeling alert and not having something out there tell me to wake up. I wake up because I want to wake up, and it's the right time. And so I started using all the different techniques in Silva to tie together to support the one thing I wanted the most, the habit control. That, and not control through, it's not who I am. I am not a drug addict. I'm not a junkie. I'm not a person who would damage my body in such a way and put myself in that situation, period. And on the 30th day, I was even a little surprised, but I kept programming. All desire has put it in the past. All desire has vanished. I will never again do that. And I saw a bright future. So saying I saw a bright future. Obviously, I was visualizing something. It was just brightness, it was just blue skies, and whatever it may be, light. And I went toward the light, as they say, and it's pretty wonderful. Nobody can tell me this stuff doesn't work. That self-hypnosis doesn't work. A Silva doesn't work. Don't tell me that. Not after what I've experienced in my lifetime.
And did you help some drug addicts in center with this method, or did you meet some other people like drug addicts in seminar and have the same history than you? Did you meet some people who live the same?
When I was a drug addict, everybody I knew, all my friends, everybody I dealt with, my time, my whole day and night were all filled up with, had to do with drugs and people who use drugs. After Silva, the people I hung out with were still people who took Silva, who wanted positive thinking, who wanted to have a better life. They weren't interested in how did I get to be a heroin addict? Who cares how I got to be one? My mother locked me in the closet. Big FD. What I wanted was, who am I now? Who am I going to become more and more of? And so I hung around with those. There was a time I went and we were doing a psychiatrist was doing a scientific research, and he asked me, could I find a couple of drug addicts and bring them into the clinic? And they were going to do some kind of, I would call it hypnosis, but they used nitrous oxide to get them into a relaxed state so that they could then use the hypnosis and the imagery and all. So I like the Silva method better, but nitrous oxide wasn't that bad either. That's why they call it laughing gas. So anyways, I had to go back to the drug community. And so I'm there with drugs. I see people shooting up and all that. I had no, maybe I could do it just once. So, it'd be all right if, nobody will know. No, I had no desire whatsoever. It had vanished, literally vanished. I felt good about myself. And I got a couple of people from that community, and they went through this program, and it did work. And then I put them through Silva. Then I said, you've got to come to the class. I'll give it to you as a scholarship. Come on to the class. They went to the class. The last I heard, they had got off and had been off drugs, but I didn't follow up with them over years, so I don't know over time what happened. But they were drug-free while in the time they were with me and in the program and going through the Silva class, and for some time after the class, because I helped them get a place to live and all that. And then, so I do know that they did get off of drugs for that time. I have no way of knowing what happened after that.
Lily, if you don't ask question, I will ask a lot of questions. So just ask question.
Move on a bit from drug addiction. So I don't know whether you have any more questions about drug addiction.
No. I think I have a lot of questions with habits and stuff like that. But I like the way he explained that. I like the idea of desire. It's always interesting because we need desire to stop something, but we need desire to stop desire. So it's a little confusing stuff, but it's very interesting. And we know that Jose used a lot confusion to explain some stuff. So I think it's interesting to explain to people who learn the system to understand that the desire can be changed by another desire, the most important one, the powerful one. And I think when we have bigger desire than the desire that give us bad behavior, we have a big and very interesting key, and no feeling of bad feeling about, I have nothing, I have no more this thing. So I think it's very interesting to emphasize about this, and I think I will explain that to a group of people I help for habits. So it's very interesting for me.
Oh, good. Yeah. So I replaced it with something better. So now I have a habit. I got a bad habit. I meditate every day. I have for 50 years. So what a bad habit. But the consequences of doing that is I have inner peace. I'm happy. I have a lot of miracles. So people say, do I believe in miracles? And as I said, I don't believe in them. I depend on them. I mean, my life is built on miracles. So that's the consequence of that. The consequence of heroin addiction is very, very dangerous. The consequence of going to level every day, or meditating every day, or self-hypnosis every day, those are all beneficial. There's no downside to it.
Yeah, that's great. Lee, so Yeah, you had a question about Ed. You wanted to know where they meet each other and with Ed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, I think Jerry's already answered that. I thought Ed and he were in the first program as students together, but in fact, you actually met Ed in Laredo when you did your instructor training. Right.
Right.
Okay. Right. So that's
Yeah.
all. What I think both of us wanted to know, if you've said everything you want to about addiction, is since this was the reason why Jerry came to do the class, he wanted to get off heroin. I wanted him to tell us what his reaction was when he got to the bit of the class when they were supposed to do ESP, and what he thought about that before and after the class.
Well, as a human being, we tend to delete, ignore, suppress, pretend it's not there, something that we're not, familiar with or comfortable with. So I'm hearing it mentioned occasionally, but it wasn't up front in the class. It wasn't really mentioned. But by the time we got to the about 3/4 of the way through the class, they had a demonstration of a case working. They brought a woman that had a graduate up the front, and they gave her a case. I said, wow, that's interesting. And I tried to figure out, okay, he's giving subliminal cues. He's hinting through the tone of his voice. There's, 90-year-old has arthritis. Well, that's not very psychic, That's a pretty likely probability. So, but she picked up some unusual things that were not likely, even for a human to have, let alone for her to be able to pick up, unless she was, cued in ahead of time, and it's a trick. And so I just thought, open mind. This is interesting because I'm experiencing things I didn't know existed by going through the exercises. And so I wasn't sure. So when it came to that, I just said, let's find out. And somebody gave me name, age, and location. I gave him, the description, and it was the woman's father. And she said, that's 100% right. Matter of fact, you mentioned something that even the doctors had overlooked, but we only found out afterwards. But you even picked up on that. I said, well, that's interesting. And we had back then you had to do 10 cases to get a certificate. And we had longer classes in those days, and because it was all new. Now people know about positive thinking. They know about relaxation. They know there's so much they know. We don't need quite so much time as we used to in the early days. So I think I got at least 8 of the 10 where I got significant, accurate information. And then when I said, well, when I get to 25, I did 10 in the class. After class, I'll go to these Silva study groups where we practice doing case working and practice going to level and positive thinking. I said, when I get to 25, I'll allow my mind to accept that there is something to this, that it actually does. There is something called intuition. There is something called ESP, or call it anything you want, that you can get information that you did not get through sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, physical senses. And it doesn't matter how you did it. It really, that's let the scientists figure out that. I just want to know that, yeah, I can get information. If it can be used to solve a problem, now it's valuable information. If it doesn't solve a problem, who cares? Who was in the last life? People ask me, do I believe in reincarnation? I say no, but I'm pretty sure my last life I didn't believe in it either. So,
and it's interesting the way you talk about that. You are like Lee or a lot of people. We just learned that Jerry Seavey didn't believe in ESP at the beginning. So it's quite interesting to observe that people who use a lot the method have at the beginning quite the same idea. The point I like it's I don't want to understand why, but it's happened, so it's cool. I'm okay with that. I know I have intuition. My first idea is, what is your idea about intuition? But you say, oh, I don't really care about how it's happened. It's happened, and I have some results, so it's interesting. And that's I think it's interesting for very logical or Cartesian people in France. We are a lot of very, very Cartesian people. So when people will do 8 to 10 good feedback, they say, yeah, but what's happened? Am I crazy? Something wrong in my mind? What is that? And it's quite hard to have such talk and say, I don't care. I just believe about what I live and what I observe. How can you help people who want to understand why you succeed case and in ESP who are afraid about that because there are no explanation. How do you help these people?
What helped me was when Jose, at one of the graduate courses, he said, people want to know, what is reality? How do we know it's real? How do we know it's not real? He said, well,